Imagine lying on a cool linen sheet, while night settles over a wide, patient river. The air is warm but kind, carrying the smell of water and baked earth, and somewhere a small oil lamp makes a steady flame that does not hurry anyone. In this calm place we will drift through ancient Egypt, as if the Nile itself were telling a bedtime story. A few soft questions will guide us. What did the night actually sound like along the river? Frogs, oars, a grain mill turning, and how did families slow their bodies towards sleep? What small tools, headrests, sweet oils, simple prayers helped a busy day end well? And what did dreams mean when stars moved like careful punctuation across the sky? We will answer these one by one, gently, meeting a fisherman, a scribe, a temple watcher, and a mother who sets a small amulet by her child's bed. The goal is not to race or to prove anything. It is to let the old routine wrap you like linen. If your eyelids grow heavy, that is welcome. In a moment, we will step onto a mud brick roof at dusk and listen as the river exhales. The day loosens its grip on the river the way fingers slip from a cool jar. Light fades from bright clay to soft honey, and the water turns from mirror to silk. A fisherman kneels by a small boat pulled halfway onto the sand. He checks each knot in the net by feel, not by sight, because his hands have learned the pattern the way feet learn a familiar stair. The net smells of water and sun. Far behind him, the land still holds heat, but here by the bank, a kind breeze arrives from the north and smooths his thoughts. You can imagine standing where he stands, hearing frogs begin their first notes in the reeds, like little thumbs on harp strings. This hour is quiet because it is shared. Every house and field makes the same long exhale. Along the lane that runs parallel to the river, a potter's family finishes the day's last tasks. The kiln is closed and the mouth sealed with clay that will crack open in the morning. Pots that cooled fast in a shady corner are stacked inside, each one a smooth, stubborn moon. The smallest child carries water from a jar to a low basin, so feet can be washed before supper. The water makes a small music on dust, and the dust says thank you by turning to paste. A cat drifts past, tail upright like a small flag that belongs to no one and to everyone. It rubs against the doorpost and sets its own rule for the night. In a moment, we'll step out to the edge of the roof and look across the river to see what the air does to sound at dusk. Roofs in this town are flat, and they remember the shape of the day. People spread mats to catch the night breeze and shake them with a crisp snap. That means sleep will be clean. A palm fiber cord runs from corner to corner to hold a simple canopy when the moon grows too curious. Many houses are whitened with lime, so the walls give back some of the sun's heat after dark, and you feel it slipping away like a warm animal leaving your lap. From here, sound travels differently. A wood paddle dips somewhere far off, and even though the boat is small, the stroke arrives like a friendly knock. Someone turns a saddle quern in a courtyard, bellow stone on stone. Grain to flour, and it is not sharp. It is round, slow, the kind of sound that tells you a meal is ready and a day belongs to its ending. In a moment, we'll follow that paddle and see where it goes when light has almost folded. On the water, the fisherman eases the boat into the shallows. Many historians think dusk and dawn were kind to nets, because fish move in these edges of the day and the glare is gentle. He wades knee-deep and sends the net in a soft circle, then waits with his hands on the rope. He does not speak to the river. He listens with his fingers. Behind him, a heron lifts and takes 3 wide steps through air, planting the night like a careful farmer. The fisherman's son holds a small lamp on the sand, shielded from the wind by his palm. It is a clay cup with a wick of twisted linen and oil pressed from seeds. The flame is not strong, it is steady. It does not chase the dark, it invites it to sit. In a moment, we'll turn back toward the houses and walk through a doorway where evening has already set the table. Inside the potter's courtyard, the air smells faintly of ash and bread. Emmer loaves from the morning's bake are stacked under a cloth, and a bowl of dates waits like tame stars. The family speaks softly, without trying. Voices fall into the same rhythm as the frogs outside and the quern next door. A jug of barley beer rests in a cool jar stand. It is mild and cloudy, more food than drink, and it carries that friendly grain smell that makes shoulders lower. Hands wash in a basin. Faces are wiped with damp cloths that leave the skin cooler. than before. None of this feels ceremonial. It feels like rolling a mat that has been spread all day and putting it back where it belongs. In a moment, a small confusion that many visitors bring will appear, and will smooth it with kindness. People often imagine Egypt's nights as silent desert, empty except for jackals and drums. The truth is friendlier. Along the river, life hums. Frogs call in overlapping patterns. Night insects start their thin violins. Oars knock the gunwales. And somewhere, a tethered donkey sighs like a man after work. In the season when the flood comes, the water adds its own gentle hiss against the banks, and lanterns ride where fields stood weeks before. Houses near fields feel quieter. Houses near docks trade a little silence for the safety of neighbors. Passing late, in both places, the night is company, not danger. In a moment, we will look up from the mat to the sky, and see how it speaks without a single word. Stars appear as if they were already there and someone just raised a shade. The Milky Way is not a rare guest, it is a good friend. Families point out familiar shapes and give them names that taste like old stories. The bright star that begins the flood season, many later call it, Sirius rises at certain times of the year, and people notice. They do not write it in a planner. They carry it in their bones, like remembering which friend likes which joke. You might hear an older voice tell a child that the great sky river mirrors the Nile, that boats travel there too, that long journeys follow measured lights. This is not a science lesson. It is the comfort of pattern. In a moment, we will shift back to the fisherman and see how his pattern ends on a small, good note. The net comes in with a weight that answers the day kindly. Not a miracle, not a failure, enough. Fish slap softly near the rope, and the fisherman's son brings the little lamp closer so his father can free each one without hurry. They will sell some in the morning, trade some for fuel and grain, and keep 2 for a stew that will taste better, because the river gave it at this gentle hour. The boy watches the flame and learns a skill without a speech. He will hold a rope like that later, sometime when his own hands look like his father's. They walk home along the bank where clay remembers feet, and the dark feels like a friend who knows the way. In a moment, we will listen to the towns. Other end the place where larger boats rest, stand here, how crews turn work into sleep, by the mooring poles. A cargo boat comes to a stop as neat as a book closing. The crew have been sailing with the north wind and the downstream current, that easy partnership that made the river a road both ways. They tie heavy ropes and lay planks so they can cross to land without wet feet. A watch is chosen, not because of danger, but because boats like being spoken to by someone awake. A man hums and sits with his back against the mast, listening to water, and would argue in low, friendly tones. The rest unroll mats under a light awning and rub their shoulders, with oil that keeps the day out and the night in. Sleep arrives, not as an order, but as an agreement. In a moment, we will step back into the potter's court, where the last flame is thinking about going out. The potter's family lifts their eyes when a breeze moves the lamp flame. The mother checks the door peg and smooths the mat near her youngest, who has already fallen asleep with a sticky date still in hand. A small wooden headrest waits near each mat, curved like a gentle bridge. It looks stiff if you come from soft pillows, but the neck likes it, and linen stays cool when your cheek touches air instead of cloth. Someone adds a drop of scented oil to the wrist smur, or something mild from a local pressand. The smell is almost not a smell. It is the memory of a garden late in the day. The cat chooses the foot of the mat that promises the best view of passing moths, and claims it without debate. In a moment, a temple lamp will flicker in our mind's corner, and we will walk there without moving our feet. Near the town's edge, a small temple keeps its own slow current. Priests and attendants move like people who know the floor well. Lamps are trimmed, a water clock sings in drips that have learned patience, and a hymn line floats out and falls like a feather. The god is not woken or made to perform. He is honored by quiet care. Doors are checked and sealed, and seals will be checked by fresh eyes at dawn. The temple does not flood the town with noise, it breathes with it. The same wind that dries laundry at home moves through this court and dries footprints no one needs to protect. In a moment, we'll return to our roof and settle on a mat with the same relief you feel after finishing a list. From the mat, the night looks taller than it did in the street. The ceiling of the world is close enough to touch, if you raise a hand, and patient enough not to startle. A wooden door creaks 2 lanes away, and then it stops. A millstone turns once more, and then rests. You may imagine yourself here for a few breaths. The river is a dark band, a few houses away. The fisherman's boat is a darker shape along its edge. The crew at the mooring have stopped their quiet talk, and become steady lumps in the soft lantern light. The potter's house smells like bread and clay and clean skin. If you arrive at sleep before we answer the questions we opened with, that is fine. But if you are still with me, in a moment we will follow how families slowed their bodies toward rest, the washing, the mat, the headrest, the small prayer by the lamp, and why that simple ritual worked for 1,000 years. The courtyard holds the day's last light, like a clay bowl holding water. Heat leaves the mud brick walls slowly, the way breath leaves after a long climb. The floor is swept with a palm broom, short strokes that lift dust and lay it down again in softer shapes. A jar stands in its ring of woven reeds, cool to the touch, because it has been sweating quietly all afternoon. Someone dips a cup and spills a little on the ground, so the air near the mats will be kinder. A low bench runs along one side. A folded reed screen leans against the other. In a moment, we will unfold that screen and feel why houses loved simple shade at night. Reed screens are everyday magic. They are light enough for one person to lift, and strong enough to tell a breeze where to go. When night insects begin their thin songs, the screen becomes a soft wall, letting air pass while asking moths to think twice. Shutters are simple boards on pegs, or hanging mats, or lattice of sticks in richer homes. They close without fuss. A door peg slides into place. With a thock the house knows by heart. Nothing here is fortified. It is friendly and practical. Even the sound of closing is restful, like stacking bowls after supper. In a moment, mats will be shaken and laid down, and we will meet the small tools that turn a warm yard into a bedroom. Mats are rolled from a niche and snapped with a crisp twist, so dust retires somewhere else. Pomfiber and rush make a springy weave that forgives the day's weight. A linen cloth is spread over each mat, loose and cool, and you can almost feel the difference on your skin when the cloth settles. Linen is a gift of the river's land, sewn, pulled, soaked, beaten, spun, and woven, and even a simple square carries the quiet pride of many hands. Many historians think families save their best lengths of linen for sleeping, not for show, because night asks for kindness more than display. In a moment, a wooden shape will appear that looks strange at first glance, but makes perfect sense to a tired neck. The headrest waits near each mat, curved like a small bridge. It lifts the head at the base of the skull, and lets air pass under, which is a blessing when nights are warm. It seems firm to newcomers who love pillows, but the body learns it quickly. It also keeps hair neat for those who wear it long, or styled another small grace. Objects like this appear in many places across Africa and beyond, which suggests the idea feels good to more than one culture. A shallow basket stands nearby to hold amulets and a comb. The pieces of bedtime look plain, but they are the kind of plain that lasts. In a moment, a small friend will enter with the right to choose any corner. The cat steps through the doorway with the stride of someone who has inspected the property and found it acceptable. It circles the water jar, listens to the ground, and selects the foot of the mat, where it can observe moths and doorways at once. In Egypt, cats worked, and also charmed. They watched for snakes and mice, and accepted praise in return. People carved them in stone and painted them on walls, not to claim worship for every cat, but to honor their luck and their usefulness. A household might wear a small pendant of a cat-faced goddess, and also smile at the real creature that warmed their toes. In a moment, the air will change again sweeter. Now we will see fog made from smell. Someone crumbles a pinch of resin onto the coal of a tiny brazier. The puff is gentle. It is not a cloud. It is a thin thread that finds corners. Frankincense or myrrh if a traveler brought some. Juniper or local gums if money is tight. A few homes burned kifi, the famous blend of resins, wine, and spices. But many historians think kifi belonged more to temples and special nights. For most families, a little pleasant smoke is enough. It softens cooking smells, keeps biting flies, indecisive, and ties the room together with a feeling many of us still know when we light a candle after dinner. In a moment, hands will wash, and we will listen to water say goodnight to skin. Water lives near the door, in a pot set on a stand. People dip, pour over fingers, pass a damp cloth along arms and feet, and pat faces. Natron, the natural salt from dry lakes, sometimes helps in washing. But at night, plain water is kinder. Oil on a fingertip, moringa, or balanos, if you could afford it. Castor, if you could not, seal skin against dryness, and leaves a faint scent, like a leaf crushed between fingers. Kohl, the black lion that protected eyes from glare and insects, is dabbed off with a cloth. The body knows the sequence. After a few nights, wash, oil, linen, headrest. Habit is the lullaby beneath the sounds of frogs and distant oars. In a moment, a quiet prayer will pass a doorway like a breeze. Words at bedtime are simple. A mother touches the doorway amulet of base, the dwarf with the lion face who scares away what should not enter. She smiles at a hippo mother figure carved in cheap faience and set near a child's mat to bless deep sleep. A father thanks the river for being steady, the way a sailor thanks a rope for holding. Children repeat a line they like, because it worked last night and the night before. None of it needs a priest. It is household language, ordinary and dear. If fear knocks storms, sickness, a dog, barking strangely, people, add one more sentence, and listen to each other's breathing. In a moment, we will glance up to the roof, because in summer, many families climb there to greet cooler air. Roofs are second rooms. They remember the heat of noon, and give it back in the first part of night. Then grow friendly. A reed canopy can be hooked against the stars if dew arrives, and a linen net can be dropped over mats when mosquitoes complain after the flood. You lie down and the sky is right there. The Milky Way looks like a path laid with flour. A bright star near the horizon teaches you when the flood is coming. Later it teaches you when sowing is near. You do not need exact numbers to know this. You need to look up often. Many historians think star watching began as a domestic habit long before it became a temple science. In a moment, lamps will think about going out, and we will notice how light is treated like a living thing. An oil lamp is a clay cup with a small spout and a twisted wick of linen. The flame is modest. It does not fill the yard. It marks a circle where hands can see each other. A screen or a high shelf keeps the flame away from fluttering cloth. When the lamp is pinched to darkness, the wick smokes for a breath, and then remembers how to be quiet. Some families leave a lamp in a niche at the gate, more for comfort than for light. Others trust the moon and the neighbors. The night is not risky by default. It is simply a visitor who prefers clarity. In a moment, shutters will settle and the air will taste a little more like sleep. Shutters close, not to seal the world out, but to let the house feel like a single room. In cooler months, people bring mats indoors where walls keep winds honest. In hotter months, they sleep on the roof and let the walls become giant coolers during the day. Mud brick is kind that way. It absorbs, releases, repeats. The door peg goes in. The donkey coughs outside as if to say he understands the plan. You may hear a neighbor's last words to a child drift across the lane, and then the night begins to edit its own script, removing noise line by line. In a moment, a small confusion about ancient sleep will lean in, and we will straighten it gently. Many imagine that people slept hard from sunset to sunrise. The truth is softer. In warm places, families sometimes woke for a short stretch in the middle of the night, checked the sky, talked lightly, poured a cup, and then returned to mats. In winter, the sleep felt longer. In flood season, the roof was visited by messages from frogs and the minds they stirred. What matters most is that routines made waking gentle. There was no harsh clock, only the bell in the body and the voices of the yard. If you wake tonight, this is an old habit visiting, not a failure. In a moment, we will return to the child's mat and watch how the small details protect the smallest sleeper. At the edge of a child's mat, a string holds a bead with an eye painted on it, a common charm against bad dreams. It bumps the reed. Screen in the breeze with a sound like a seed pod. A carved spoon shaped like a swimming girl lies near a water cup. Ordinary tools with pretty lines. Because beauty often lives in what you use every day. The child's hair smells faintly of lotus oil from a festival weeks ago, a scent that lingers in fibers and in the mind. The cat, who has finished washing, arranges itself into a circle of certainty and offers its warmth to bare feet. In a moment, Across town, a scribe will close his reed pen case and climb his own steps, and we will follow him tomorrow. For now, the river, the screens, the linen, the oil, the headrest, the charms, the cat, and the voices all agree on one thing. The house gives the last of its heat to the night and grows like a cool cave with laughter still echoing in its corners. If you were to stand by the doorway and listen, you would hear the same breaths you heard by the river, steady, shared, forgiving. A courtyard needs very little to become a bedroom. A mat, a cloth, a wooden curve, a little smoke, a rinsed face, a sentence that asks the dark to be kind. These were the tools that turned dusk into sleep across many lifetimes. And we return to the question we opened. With what small things helped a busy day end? Well, and we can answer now without haste. It was these. In a moment, we will place a loaf, a jug, and a bowl on the same table and see how bread and beer made the last step even easier. The courtyard is cool now, like a jar taken from shade. The reed screen stands where we left it, and the little breeze knows how to pass. A low table has found its evening shape. A round loaf on a reed mat, a clay bowl with something warm and kind inside, and a jug whose sides are damped with the day's last sweat. Voices in the lane drift and thin. The family sits in that half-light where faces look softer. You can almost taste the calm. In a moment, we will follow the loaf from field to fingers and see how it carries sleep without asking for praise. Bread here begins as emmer wheat, the sturdy grain that likes the Nile's lesson of flood. Sow, harvest. The kernels are rubbed free from their tough coats, then ground on a saddle quernstone, moving over stone in a slow circle that sets a rhythm in the back. Flour is mixed with water and a pinch from yesterday's dough, because dough remembers. Sometimes it rises into a soft belly, sometimes it stays flat and practical. Both have their place. The oven is a clay dome, warmed by a small fire, and the loaf bakes against the wall, puffing where heat kisses it. Many tomb scenes show baking and brewing side by side. It is likely that kitchens did the same, because the two crafts share tools, time, and patience. In a moment, we'll break this loaf and feel why its plainness is a luxury. Emmer bread has a chew that asks you to slow down. Bran flecks glint like tiny seeds in the lamplight. A bit of barley might be mixed in, or a spoon of ground beans. When harvesters ask for thrift, if there is sweetness, it comes from dates mashed into a paste, not a heavy flood of sugar, which was rare and precious. The crust wears dust from the oven's interior, a proud mark of honest heat. When the loaf opens, steam smells like a field in warm weather. A few drops of oil make the torn face shine. Bread is not a prop in this world. It is the bed the meal sleeps on. In a moment, hands will dip into the bowl, and you will see how bread also becomes a spoon. Evening supper is gentle on dishes. A stew waits in a clay pot. Fish or lentils, leeks and onions softened until they lean into each other. A pinch of cumin or coriander if the market smiled today. A little salt from a dry lake far off. Everyone eats from the same bowl, not with spoons, but with bread torn and folded to cradle flavor. No metal clinks, no edge scratches. The bread carries sauce and protects fingers from heat, then vanishes into the person who used it. Hand washing comes before and after, as natural as breathing. The bowl is easier to clean. The family is closer without trying. In a moment, the jug will tilt, and the river's grain will return in a different form. Beer is food you can pour. It is mild, cloudy, and kind. Barley and emmer begin as a mash that warms until it smells like breakfast. Some houses crumble baked loaves into the vat bread, becoming beer as easily as a day becomes night. The brew rests until it hums softly to itself. Then it is strained through woven reeds or poured carefully so the heavy bits stay home. Many pictures show people drinking with straws from a common jar, which helps skip the lees at the bottom. It is possible that families did this too, especially when the jar was big and the company good. The taste is earthy and faintly sweet, and the body approves. In a moment, we'll answer the question people often whisper: why buy not water? The river is a friend, but raw water can be moody. Brewing boils and ferments, both of which tame small mischiefs. The result is a safe drink that feeds and calms. At once, workers were often paid in bread and beer, a phrase that sounds like wages and reads like welfare. Children sipped beer watered down, not to be lively, but to be well. Elders drank it slowly, the way you hold a cup to warm your hands as much as your throat. Alcohol is present, but not the point. The point is warmth, calories, and the regular comfort of a recipe that almost always behaves. A bellyful of bread and mild beer lowers voices without anyone commanding it to. In a moment, the bright companions of this meal will join dates, and onions, and the table will look like a simple festival. Dates are the night's dessert, patient and generous. They stay sweet even after a long day, and they keep like friendly treasure on a high shelf. A mother splits one and tucks a bit of nut inside if trade has gone well. Otherwise, the fruit alone sings enough. Onions and leeks bring a different gift, sharp when raw, friendly when stewed. They were thought to give strength, and they carry a scent that says honest work. A few olives might make an appearance where they grow, or a small dish of pickled vegetables to tickle the tongue and keep the rest of the food awake. Nothing is heavy. Everything leans toward sleep. In a moment, we will glance at milk and cheese, because questions about them often arrive at this hour. Milk exists, but it lives a quick life in warm places. Fresh milk from cattle, goats, or sheep is taken early, used early, or nudged toward curds and a soft young cheese. For supper, families might crumble a little into stew, or save it for morning porridge when the sun forgives richer foods. Butter is shy. Oils do more of the evening's work. Many historians think households relied on plant fat, sesame, or castor in some seasons. Local presses where geography allowed, often in small amounts. Since oil feels special even when it is common, the point is not luxury, it is ease. Food that handles itself makes room for rest. In a moment, we'll wash our hands again and see how that ritual carried both safety and calm. A jug, a bowl, 2 hands, and a cloth. Water is poured over fingers and trickles into a shallow basin or onto swept earth that accepts it like a blessing. Natron, the local salt that dries and cleans, might help in some houses, though many likely preferred plain water at night, so skin stayed soft. The cloth is rough enough to mean business and soft enough to feel kind. Washing is not fear. It is courtesy to the people who share your bowl and your mat. It also discourages the small creatures that like crumbs and corners. Flies are waved away with fans. Bowls sleep under lids. The cat performs a private inspection. Few insects survive. In a moment, we will step into the kitchen corner and let the day's fire show us its last face. Most cooking happens outside or beneath an open roof. A clay hearth glows. A pot leans at a safe angle. Smoke tells its story and leaves by a door. That does not mind. A stew is reheated, then left to calm itself so no one burns a tongue. Bread baked in the morning comes back to life with a breath of warmth on a hot shard from the oven wall. The air smelled simple grain, steam, a little sweetness from dates, a faint ghost of smoke. These smells are old friends that ask nothing. They drift into cloth and hair, and the house becomes the kind of place where sleep arrives early just to listen. In a moment, we will stroke a common myth with the grain instead of against it. Visitors sometimes picture Egypt as a parade of endless feast stables, heaving dancers, generous cups, a tumble. Grand banquets existed in palaces and appear on walls, because palaces hire painters, but most nights tasted like this one. Bread that remembers the field, beer that remembers the mash, onions that remember the earth, dates that remember the palm. Honey was precious. Sugar was a stranger for most of this story. Spices were careful enough to make a pot wink, not enough to empty a purse. Many historians think such steady, seasonal eating kept bodies even and tempers smooth. Sleep likes evenness. In a moment, you will hear a soft modern echo. Think of the meal that makes you quiet without making you full of firework soup and a crust. A cup of something warm, a sweet bite that behaves. That is the shape of this table. It does not demand attention. It offers it. It is not a shout. It is a low hum you can match your breath to. Families here did not count calories. They counted habits. Wash, eat together, laugh, thank, tidy, rest. The body understands this pattern the way feet understand the coolness of a floor at night. In a moment, the scribe we met in passing will close his pen case, look at the same stars you can see from this courtyard, and decide his own day is ready to end. He has tallied rations and noted deliveries of grain, the same grain that rose and baked and cooled into the loaf we tasted. He rinses his reed pens, rubs the tips smooth on a bit of ostrakhan, and leaves them to dry beside the lamp. His supper looks like ours, his washing sounds like ours, and his lamp will be pinched with the same small twist. Only afterward does he climb to the roof and let the sky finish the lesson the day began, that patterns, not prizes, keep people whole. He will watch a bright star shoulder the horizon and nod to the water clock's slow song in the temple nearby, and we return to the question that guides our drift: what helped a busy day end well? And we can feel the answer in our fingers and on our tongue. Bread, beer, dates, onions, water, cloth, oil, laughter. In a moment we will follow the scribe into that last quiet hour where he reads time by light and breath and lets the sky write sleep on his page. The scribe's room is small and friendly, tucked above a courtyard where the night has already completed its slow landing. The walls remember the day's heat and let it go in an even breath. A lamp the size of a hand makes a steady flame on a low stand, and near it lies the scribe's wooden palette with two tiny wells, one for black, one for red. The pens are reeds, cut at an angle and softened in water earlier so the tips will obey. On the floor, a woven mat and a low board make a desk for knees. Nothing in this room is grand, yet everything knows its job. In a moment, we will sit with him as he finishes the day's numbers and puts the river's grain into the comfort of ink. He writes upright, shoulders soft, legs folded, the board across his thighs. A sheet of papyrus lies flat under his hand, the fibers running left to right like a field plowed the same way. The black ink is a quiet mixture of soot and gum. The red carries iron from the earth. Black walks most of the page. Red speaks when a heading needs a voice or a total wants a little crown to keep it safe. He is not telling a story tonight. He is closing accounts. Baskets of emmer in, jars of beer out, rations to the boat crew whose ropes we heard creak at dusk. He writes numerals with a calm hand, repeats them under his breath, and lets the page become a memory that town can share tomorrow. In a moment, we will notice how this writing is not carved in stone but flows, because sleep prefers soft lines. He uses a script that moves like water. Later readers call one version hieratic, and later still, demotic. To him, it is simply quick writing for quick minds. It keeps the shapes of the older, carved signs, but teaches them to run. The reed nib does not scratch. It kisses and lifts, leaving strokes that look as tidy as a garden. When his mind gets ahead of his hand, he pauses and rests, the pen on the pallet rail, just as a rower rests an oar to let the breath catch up. The room is so quiet you can hear the reed touch the lampstand when he sets it down. In a moment, a broken pot will enter the scene and become a tool, because scribes loved good scraps. Near the mat sits a pile of astrakhan shards of broken pottery and flakes of limestone as white as a cloud. Practice lives on these, and quick notes, and little sums that audition for the papyrus before they earn a place. The scribe tests a number on a shard, checks a column, adds a single red mark to show this is a total, then copies the approved line onto the roll. Papyrus is precious, even in busy times, and a careful worker uses scraps the way the baker uses yesterday's dough, carrying a small memory forward to make today behave. Many historians think work like this started in schoolrooms called houses of life, where boys learned letters and sums by copying wise sayings and lists until the reed moved without thinking. In a moment, we will let one of those sayings peek in and smile at its simple advice. Be a scribe, says an old text in many versions. It saves you from labor. It speaks with pride about soft hands and shade. Yet the scribe we watch tonight is not idle. His work has weight. The granary's comfort, the boat crew's wages, the steward's calm voice in the morning, these lean on the neatness of this page. He is saved from hauling sacks, yes, but he holds something else, trust. He writes clearly so others can sleep, which is perhaps the gentlest sort of strength. In a moment, the lamp will throw a small shadow, and we will see how he tames the night without any clock. Time here arrives by senses. He keeps a Mercator's simple plumb-line device wrapped in cloth, more for habit than for need tonight. It helps during temple duty to sight a straight north-south line by stars. but at home he relies on sky and breath. Through the open lattice he can see the bright band of the Milky Way and, lower, familiar stars that many call Dikanes. Temple watchers count their risings to divide the night, but a household scribe counts more softly. When a certain star clears the roofline of the baker's house, he knows the first watch is passing. When a frog chorus reaches a deeper tone, he knows the air has cooled another step. In a moment, we'll visit the water clock only with our ears, because even when he cannot see it, its rhythm belongs to him. Down the lane, in a small court near the temple, a clepsydra lets drops fall at a trained pace. The scribe has tended that bowl on other nights, adjusting flow with a careful hand when heat makes water impatient. He remembers its sound the way you remember a lullaby, and sometimes, when he pauses to think, he hears it in his head drop, an even heartbeat guiding him to close his page soon. If someone asks how late it is, he might point to the sky, or to the smell of cooling brick, or to the stillness of cats. He would be right every time, because time here is not a number, it is a texture. In a moment, he will finish the last column and treat his tools the way sailors treat ropes. Pens are rinsed with a splash from a small cup. He rubs each nib between finger and thumb to smooth the angle. The palette is wiped with a damp scrap of linen. The ink cakes themselves are left to dry like small, dark lozenges for tomorrow. He ties the papyrus with a strip of flax and pinches the lamp to a thimble of light so soot will not paint the ceiling. Nothing is tossed, nothing is hidden. He moves like someone who knows that order at night buys time at dawn. In a moment, he will add one line in red at the bottom of the roll, a simple check mark that turns a page into a promise. Red is not fancier, it is clearer. Headings, totals, little warnings. Red keeps them from getting lost in the warm river of black. He draws the sign with a single breath and then leans back against the wall. The board leaves his knees. The reed case closes with a soft click. He does not reach for more work. He lets the room become a room again. Outside, a late walker's sandals whisper on dust. From the river comes one slow knock of wood, like a door gently closing somewhere you cannot see. In a moment, his eyes will rise to the square of sky and take a lesson from light dot stars with the first page he learned to read. He knows the bright one that promises the flood when it returns to dawn after a long absence. He knows the small ones that move together like a boat crossing the heavenly river. He does not name them as a scholar might in a formal register. He knows them as a neighbor knows faces. Some scholars in this land crafted star tables that divide the night into careful slices. The scribe respects that work even if his needs are simpler. Tonight he lets the constellations do what they do best, make a roof that feels steady. In a moment, a gentle thought will return from earlier in our evening, the way food and friendship make sleep, and he will wrap it around himself like linen. His supper was the same as his neighbor's, bread with a friendly chew, mild beer to soften the edges, onions and dates to balance things. He rubs a little oil on his wrists and behind his ears, not to impress the night, but to keep his skin from cracking after a day in dry air. The scent is faint and green. A basin holds water for washing. He dips his hands, pats his face, and dries with a cloth that has seen better days and still enjoys its duties. You can feel your own shoulders lower as he moves, because routine works like that. It lends calm across centuries. In a moment, he will place two small objects beside the roller reed and a bead, and their company will be enough. The bead has an eye painted on it, and it lies near a tiny figure of Base, the happy guardian with a wild mane who pulls faces at trouble. The scribe is not superstitious in the way a stranger might think. He is domestic. He sets good company near the tools that carry many people's peace. The reed is a reminder of work well done. The bead, a reminder that the night belongs to no fear. He breathes out. He thanks the river in a whisper. He thanks the hands that wove his mat and made his lamp and pressed the ink cakes that glide across every page in this district. Gratitude here is a practical craft. It keeps a house light. In a moment, he will climb a short stair to the roof and let the final coolness wash him. On the roof, mats lie under a sky he could copy with his eyes closed. The north wind, the gentle Itisian, draws a line along his skin and writes the word sleep in quiet letters. He brings his headrest and a folded cloth. He does not hurry the last acts of the day. He checks the door peg below one more time, not because he doubts it, but because routine is the lid on the jar of worry. He sets the headrest, lies on his side, and lets his gaze soften until the stars blur into a single cool presence. The cat from downstairs discovers him and pretends indifference before choosing the warm hollow at his knees. In a moment, he will drift, but before he does, one more memory asks to be noticed. He remembers the house of life, that school with its teacher who paced like a metronome, tapping a reed against her palm, guiding letters, correcting numbers, praising the clean red line under a neat total. He remembers copying a model letter that said, "Tell your mother, I am well. Tell the house I am like the Nile in flood," not because the phrase was exact, but because it felt good to write a sentence that carried comfort. He has carried versions of that sentence into his grown work, whether he is recording grain or tallying rope or noting jars of oil for lamps just like his own. Every neat page is a small letter to the town that says, "You will be all right by morning." In a moment, we will follow that conviction to the temple, where other hands keep the same promise with lamps and water and starlight. His eyes close. The room below holds the roll with its red check. The palette dries. The courtyard's reed screen sings a little in the breeze. Somewhere, the water clock's drop meets its bowl. The fisherman's boy, whose lamp we watched by the river, is already asleep. The potter's child has finally released that sticky date. The cargo crew are breath and shadow under their awning, and we return to our first gentle question: what does the night sound like along the river? And how do families slow their bodies towards sleep? We have answered it here, in ink and oil and breath. In a moment, you and I will walk softly into the temple's after sunset hour, where a different rhythm lamps trimmed, seals checked, stars measured keeps the city's heartbeat even until dawn. The temple breathes differently than the streets. Stone holds the day's heat a little longer, and then it lets it go all at once, like a long sigh across the courtyards. The sacred lake is a dark mirror tucked against a wall of carved scenes, and frogs practice the same patient notes we heard by the river. Lamps glow along the colonnade, each one a small sun with a steady core. Sandals whisper. The air smells faintly of resin and oil. This place has work to do after sunset, but its work is soft. In a moment, we will step through the gate as guests, and learn how the night keeps order here. A doorkeeper sits on a low stool and reads faces the way a scribe reads a page. He knows the workers on night duty, the singers, the men who tend lamps, and the star watcher who will climb the stairs. He also knows who must stop at the threshold until morning. He is polite and exact. A small seal hangs at his belt to mark, a wax plug if a door needs closing again, and a simple board on the wall lists the hours of watches the way a market lists tolls. This is not a fortress. It is a house that likes to remember itself. In a moment, we will pass into the outer court and meet the first job of the evening. Lamp tending is a craft. 2 attendants move in a slow circuit with jugs of oil and a bundle of linen wicks. They pinch a tired flame, trim it, and feed it a breath of oil until it stands up again. They set lamps where the night needs a path at the base of pillars, near carved doorways, by the steps that climb to the roof. The light does not shout, it simply tells feet where not to stumble. The smell is a friendly cousin of the smell at home, only a little sweeter when someone adds a pinch of incense in honor of the god. In a moment, we will meet the people who must be the cleanest tonight, and hear how they ready themselves. Purity here is practical and respectful. Priests who serve the inner rooms shave hair from head and body, wash with natron, and put on fresh linen that feels like cool water. Sandals wait outside the holier spaces. Jewelry is simple or absent. Many historians think these habits grew from both hygiene and a desire to show the god that nothing sticky from the day will intrude. But not all the workers keep the same rules. Lampmen wear simple belts and work bare-armed. Singers wear clean cloth and a smile. The scribe who notes seals keeps his pen case tucked into his sash. Each roll has a weight and a lightness. In a moment, our ears will find the water clock and learn how the temple hears the night. In a side room, a stone bowl with carved lines along its inside lip lets water fall at a trained pace. This is the clepsydra, the water clock. A thin stream, almost a thread, drops from a small hole and raises the level in the bowl in a way that can be read even by lamplight. The keeper checks the surface. adds a wisp of oil to calm bubbles, and adjusts the flow when the season makes water fast or slow. He calls the hour softly to the doorkeeper, who nods and marks it with a pebble on a small tray. The hours of the night are not numbers here. They are smooth stones and the sound of drops. In a moment, we will climb to the roof and feel how stars guide the same rhythm. On the roof, a star watcher lifts a simple tool called a It is a plumb line hung from a straight stick. He sights along it to a familiar star and lets the hanging line find true north. Other stars rise and set in order, and with practice they announce the passing watchers. Many nights, he helps the temple align its prayers, and at certain seasons he watches for the bright one that later ages call Sirius, whose dawn return, whispering above the horizon, tells people the flood is near and the year is turning new. He does not lecture the sky, he listens to it. When his hour arrives, he walks down the stair and touches the doorframe with a calm hand, as if shaking the night's hand in return. In a moment, we will stand outside the inner sanctuary and see how rest is protected there. The god's statue does not meet the street. It stands in a small chamber deep inside, behind doors carved with scenes of offerings and light. At evening, those doors are closed by hands that have washed, and a soft clay seal is pressed where wood meets wood. The seal carries the temple's mark made by a ring or a small stamp, so that any hand who breaks it will be an honest witness. A scribe notes the seal, the hour, the names present. The god is not trapped. He is given privacy, the way a child is allowed sleep without visitors. Offerings of bread and beer and flowers rest on stands nearby. The room beyond the doors is quiet as a full jar. In a moment, a rumor you might have heard will arrive, and we will show it where to sit. Stories, love curses, and hidden knives. They say, temple doors bid thieves and statues walked at night to scold the lazy. The truth is calmer. Temples trusted sealed doors, trained eyes, and a long habit of many witnesses. Magic here heck is less a lightning bolt, and more the proper saying of words and the proper doing of tasks that keep the world in balance. The threats carved in stone are not booby traps. They are reminders to treat sleep as sacred. It turns out that the dullest tool seals, lists, shared rules keep fear away better than a spectacle. In a moment, the night will begin to sing, and we will listen from the shade. Chants begin low, like someone humming to calm a child. A small group of singers stands near the columns and repeats lines that have lived here for generations. Some carry rattles called sistrums and shake them softly so metal tongues kiss a loop and make a bright, shy sound. The words are simple. Thanks for life, river, breath, light. The notes ride the columns and come back without hurry. Incense rises in thin ribbons, not to choke the room, but to give the air a way to speak. Kiffy, the famous blend, may be burned on festival nights. On ordinary nights, gentler resins are enough. In a moment, we will glance into a side chamber, where writing keeps pace with music. The temple has storerooms and tallies like the granary, though the labels are different. Bread, beer, oil, linen, flowers, incense, copper tools. River reads for thatching shrines, all of it moves by lists. A scribe sits on a low stool, his board across his knees, and records what came, what rests, what will be sent out to the poor on the appointed day. He writes totals in red, just as our friend at home did. He ties small labels to baskets, so mourning hands will not guess. Many historians think temple economies smoothed hunger in lean years and helped festivals happen without waste. The work is not glamorous. It is generous in a quiet way. In a moment, we will step back to the lake and feel how water helps, even when no one needs to drink. The sacred lake reflects a slice of sky between the walls. Priests rinse instruments there, wash hands between tasks, and set small boats to float. Candles on nights when memory needs a gentle sign. The lake also cools the air. You can feel its gift near the steps. Frogs chatter as if discussing temple business, and a nightbird skims the surface in a quick bow. The lake belongs to the temple, but it also belongs to the town, the way a tree in a square belongs to everyone who rests in its shade. In a moment, the walls will feel a soft step, and we will hear how the temple keeps watch without waking fear. Doorkeepers and guards walk a pattern that their feet know better than their minds. A bronze tag touches a ring at each corner to show the round is complete. Dogs follow with wagging patience and settle at doorways where they have always slept. If a lamp stutters, a hand reaches it. If a rope droops, a hand lifts it. The watch does not expect attackers. It expects old buildings to do what old buildings do: shift, settle, ask for small help. When the water clock calls the second watch, one pair of eyes goes up and another sits down. All of this is meant to keep the inner rooms as quiet as sealed jars. In a moment, we will meet a hopeful custom that touches sleep directly. Some people visit temples to ask for dreams. In certain places, they sleep in a side hall on clean mats, hoping for a message to ease an illness or answer a choice. A priest listens in the morning and offers a reading, and sometimes a small offering is made in thanks for a dream that brought peace. Not every temple did this, and not every night allowed it, but the idea is simple and kind. Make a clean place, ask the god for a benevolent dream, sleep under a roof that the town honors, and wake feeling seen. We will return to dreams when we visit household amulets, but for now, hold the thought that institutions also cared for sleep. In a moment, we will correct one more modern picture before we drift toward the river again. Later stories sometimes paint priests as secretive magicians, always guarding riddles and hiding mirrors, yet much of temple work looked like what we have already seen across town. Cleaning, tallying, sealing, trimming, timing. The wonder is not that statues moved, the wonder is that rooms stayed steady across centuries because many hands repeated the same calm tasks with pride. The temple's greatness sat on top of chores. A visitor who expected thunder found a broom, a lamp, a ledger, a bowl of water, a song. If that sounds like home, that is the point. In a moment, a small modern analogy will let the feeling settle. Think of a hospital at night, or a library, or a quiet museum. Lights are low, doors are locked with seals or signs, a watchman walks, a clock hums, a few workers tend delicate rooms, and the building seems to sleep and breathe. The temple at night is this feeling in older clothes. It is a promise that the day will start where it should, with nothing lost and everything in its place. That is holiness of a practical kind. It is allowed to be boring, because boring means safe. In a moment, dawn will still be far, but our path will turn back toward the river, where ropes creak and anchors hold, and we will learn how boats and banks agree to share the dark. Before we go, look once more at the lamp line along the pillars, the quiet seal on the shut doors, the water clock's patient surface, the star watcher leaning on the parapet, listening for a breath between frogs and wind. The god sleeps, or listens, or simply enjoys the order that friendly humans have made. We leave the temple the way we entered, with a nod to the doorkeeper and a light step on the slabs worn by many nights. And we return to our early gentle question: what small tools helped people rest? Here the tools are: lamps, seals, songs, drops of water, and eyes that know the sky. In a moment, we will follow that same mood onto a moored boat, where knots and nets and a humming watchman turn a river into a bedroom. The river meets the dark like an old friend who knows not to speak. Loudly, the hull settles against the bank with a small wooden sigh, and the ropes, thick with use, creak in a voice that only boatmen truly hear. Someone tosses a coil to shore, and it lands with a soft thump on sand that remembers many landings. The sail has already been lowered and bundled. Its broad cloth lies like a sleeping wing against the mast. A man with a pole steps along the rail, probing the slope of the bank, checking the water's edge for a depth that will be kind when the current turns in the night. Nothing is done in a hurry. Everything is done in the same order as last night, and the night before. In a moment, we will stand on the gangplank and feel how even a moving world can become a bedroom. Mooring is a conversation. The boat asks the bank for permission, and the bank replies with mud that grips stakes and a curve that shields from the busy part of the current. 2 stakes go in at angles and the ropes twisted flax, sometimes palm fiber, sometimes whatever. A careful rope maker can provide drap around them in neat figure eights. A reed fender, plump and patient, sits between hull and shore so wood and sand do not quarrel. If the river learns a new trick tonight, these quiet helpers will hold the peace. The pilot walks a little farther upstream to look at the bend. He nods to himself. He has memorized sandbars the way a scribe memorizes numbers. In a moment, a watch is chosen. and we will hear how a night is kept safe, without making it nervous. The watchman is not a sentinel with a spear held high. He is a listener. He takes a mat, a lamp with a shield around its flame, and a small gourd of water. He chooses a place by the mast, where the whole boat feels close. He hums to himself in the language of rope and plank, checking knots by touch rather than sight. Every hour he rises, presses his palm to the mooring line, and reads the rivers, moved through the fibers. If they have tightened, he loosens a breath of slack. If they have relaxed, he gathers a bit of the night back in. He does not wake the others for this. He is answering the same question the temple water clock answered: how is the night moving now? In a moment, we will step below the awning, where the crew turn their backs to the day and their faces toward sleep. The awning is a roof of reeds and cloth stretched low so dew will not invite itself onto shoulders. Mats are unrolled with the same care as at home, though here the floor rocks slightly and whispers of the river never quite stop. Men open small bundles that hold the few things that make a traveling night feel kind: a linen cloth, a wooden headrest, a bit of oil in a corked jar, a tiny amulet or bead that has traveled more miles than any man on board. They rub oil into skin that the sun taught all day, loosening shoulders and knees, making a dull glow where the lamp finds them. A pot is kept warm near the stern, with what remains of a stewfish softened with leeks, a handful of beans, a torn bit of bread too. Carry it. In a moment, the pilot will speak a sentence that sounds like nothing and keeps everything together. He says, softly, the same ordinary prayer he always says, for the river and the wind. Thanks for today's good behavior. A wish that tomorrow's sandbars will sit where memory left them. A greeting to Happy, the river's spirit, spoken as if to a neighbor leaning on a fence. He is not hoping for marvels here, is making a bridge between a day of work and a night of rest. The men answer with small jokes about who snores and who steals mats in their sleep. A good crew makes sleep into a habit. They lie with feet toward the mast so no one trips over their heads. And they keep a clear path to the gangplank, because a clear path is better than courage when the river changes its mind. In a moment, you will notice the moon and understand why some nights allow a little travel and others insist on staying put. Moonlight writes a silver road on the water. On bright nights with familiar banks, boats sometimes move a short distance to take advantage of the gentler air, sliding along with a steerage or at a whisper of paddle. But more often they rest, because the Nile is a teacher that repeats its lesson. The current gives you a free road north. The north wind gives you a free road south. Together they make the river a corridor in both directions, and there is no need to argue with the dark. Many travelers from later times imagined that fear ruled these hours, that crocodiles lurked at every bend, the thieves circled every moored boat. Those were possible troubles, and people respected them. But most nights the main danger was a drifting branch or an impatient knot. In a moment, we will see how simple tools turned those dangers into small chores. The boat carries a basket of river stones that have been drilled and tied with rope. These act as anchors when the bank is not perfect. They are lowered with the gentle pull of a person who knows the weight of water. When the wind turns mischievous, a spare pole goes into the mud at an angle, and the line to it brings the bow to attention. Lamps are shielded because flame and rope do not enjoy each other's company. A little sand waits in a jar near each lamp to pinch any spark that forgets its manners. The watchman's hands smell of oil and river and rope. He knows that good sleep is mostly the result of dull precautions. In a moment, we will follow his gaze along the channel and learn how pilots know where they are when the banks all look like shadows. Pilots read the night with more than eyes. A certain clump of palms stands against the sky like fingers. A tower at the ferry has a notch that catches the moon. A temple pylon on a far bank cuts the stars in a familiar way. Sound helps too. The echo off a high bank is different from the hush of a flat shore. Frogs are louder in certain oxbow pools. Dogs belong to villages that sing the same pattern every night. A pilot can point with his chin at a darkness and say, "The grain store is there," and he will be right without needing to see it. He keeps these maps by use, not by study. In a moment, we will return to the deck where the crew are almost asleep, and let a small correction sit gently on the story. We told earlier, it is easy to say the river always moved boats at night, and the wind always pushed them by day. The truth is that the river and wind offer gifts both ways. The north-flowing current carries you toward the sea whether the moon is up or not, and the often north-to-south wind lifts you toward the southern cities whenever the sail is hungry. Boatmen learned to use whichever partner was smiling that hour. Many historians think this is why Egypt felt strung together like beads. The necklace held because two steady forces gave travelers a predictable choice. The result is calm, no heroic racing against nature, only polite agreements with it. In a moment, we will peek into a cargo hold to see what sleeps there, because cargo has bedtime rules too. The hold smells of grain and rope and cool wood. Jars are nested in reed rings to keep them from cracking each other's shoulders. Baskets of onions wear their papery coats and rest like moons. Amphorae, with fish sauce strong, but valued, sit near the stern, corked and sealed with clay, marked by somebody's careful stamp. Heavy blocks or timber are cribbed with wedges, so they will not sigh their way across the floor in the night. Every piece is lashed in a way that will be easy to undo in the morning. A boy sent to check the lashings learns a knot from his father, with a small twist of wrist that will one day keep his own cargo from learning to slide. In a moment, a quiet myth about constant danger will try to knock again, and we will answer with what the rope already knows. Stories from far-off ages, love, scenes of river pirates and midnight storms. Those things existed, but they were not the nightly rule. Most nights the only visitors were insects admiring the lamp and the occasional curious hippo surfacing with a breath like a pot simmering. Even the crocodiles, where they were common, kept their own hours and their own logic, and boatmen learned where to avoid encouraging them. The true heroes here are not fighters. They are sleepers who taught themselves how to rest safely on moving wood. They tidied the deck, tied the knots, and set the watch so morning would find the boat exactly where evening left it. If you have ever slept on a train that paused in a siding, or on a ferry in a calm harbor, you know this feeling. The vessel becomes a small town for the night, with a watch, a path kept clear, a quiet stove, and rules that are really courtesies. Even a campsite by a river follows the same recipe. Tie things down, keep the fire polite, let one person listen while the others dream. The Nile crew would recognize your care as their own. They would smile at your headlamp and show you their lamp. You would show them your quick stow bags and they would show you their reed rings. In a moment, dawn will still be far, but cleanliness will ask to join the story. Because even on a river, comfort and washing hold hands. Before sleep, a jar is dipped and a small wash is shared. Hands and faces first, then feet. Sand smooths, water rinses, oil seals. Linen cloths are shaken and spread over mats. A headrest finds the hollow of a neck as easily as at home. The river gives coolness for free in the second half of night, and the awning keeps the gift. The watchman hums a tune that always sounds like the river long, flat notes with tiny ripples where his breath changes. If insects complain, a pinch of resin in a small dish makes a scent they dislike and people enjoy. Clean bodies, clean mats, steady ropes. These three invite deep sleep even more effectively than tiredness alone. In a moment, one last misunderstanding will fade, and the boat will join the same quiet as the temple and the courtyard. Some think that travel in the past meant constant discomfort, but crews built routine wherever they went. They carried their beds in pieces, a mat, a cloth, a wooden curvant assembled a bedroom under the stars. They respected night as a partner instead of an obstacle. They learned the moods of creek tide and breeze until those sounds became lullabies, and they always left room for morning by the way they arranged the evening. This is the secret worth borrowing. Make sleep part of the plan, not a rescue from it. The watchman stands, touches the mooring line one more time, and nods to the bank. The rope hums back a note that means enough. In a moment, we will drift from deck to shore to follow the scent of oils and the cool promise of linen. Because the next piece of this story is how Bodis, even after work, found a way to feel like silk. The first touch is always water. A small basin sits near the doorway, a simple jar beside it, and a folded cloth waits with the patience of an old friend. A hand pours, and another hand receives. Dust loosens. Day lets go. The water is not cold enough to startle, not warm enough to make you linger. It is exactly the kind that says, "You have done enough." A few grains of natron pinch between fingers and leave a faint squeak on the skin, a sound that feels clean, even before you dry. If the evening is kind, a second paw tickles the feet, and the body reads the message at once. Rooms are for rest, and rest begins at the edges. In a moment, oil will follow the water and teach skin how to breathe in the dark. Oil waits in a small stoppered jar. It is not poured like a flood. It is invited like a guest. A dab on the wrists, a trace along the forearms, a stroke across the shoulders that spent all day making, lifting, writing, steering. The oil might be balanos, pressed from the desert date. It might be moringa, smooth and light. It might be castor, thicker and more stubborn. Each has its own voice. Some houses, when trade smiles, keep a little of something scented with myrrh or lotus to blend with the plain oil. It does not need to be strong. It needs to be kind. The smell is the sort you notice only when you stop noticing it, the way you notice linen only when it has cooled your skin. In a moment, a small spoon will appear, and we will learn how fat and flour become a bedtime story. Perfume here often begins as a quiet kitchen craft. Fats are melted slowly with petals, resins, bits of bark, and then cooled so the smell lives. In the softness, a tiny spoon lifts a pie-sized curve of perfumed unguent and lays it on a fingertip. It warms again when it meets skin. It remembers what it learned in the pot. Banquet scenes on tomb walls show cones of scented fat perched on wigs, and many people imagine a party where perfume drips like honey. It is likely gentler. Many historians think the cone is either a sign for this room smells pleasant, or a slow, firm bomb that softens and scents hair over hours, not minutes. In a moment, a wig will settle on a shaved head and teach us why clean here also means cool. Hair is a practical art. Many men and women shave their heads, or keep hair close-cropped, and wear wigs outdoors as shade you can choose. Wigs protect from sun by day and lift off at night so the scalp can thank the breeze. This allows washing to be thorough, easy, and frequent. A comb lives in the same basket as the amulets. It rests near a pot of oil for ends that complain. Cold, the black line drawn at the edge of eyelids, is wiped away in the evening and renewed in the morning, not only for looks, but because fine mineral mixtures help against glare and insects. Beauty and usefulness share a jar more often than not. In a moment, linen enters, and you will feel why cloth itself becomes part of sleep. Linen is the country's second river. Flax grows, stalks soak, fibers are beaten, spun, and woven into a fabric that is light in the heat and eager to be washed. A fresh tunic feels like cool water made into a garment. Even a simple strip of linen laid over a mat makes the mat behave like a better bed. You notice how it slides under your shoulder, with a promise to wick sweat away and give it to the air. Many households keep a stack of long rectangles that can be wraps, towels, or sheets depending on the hour and the season. White is more than a color here. It is a temperature. In a moment, we'll walk to the laundry corner and watch how cleanliness is a rhythm, not an event. Laundry begins at dawn or in late afternoon when sun is kind and breezes listen. Cloth goes to the river or to a courtyard trough, rubbed with water, sometimes with natron, sometimes with clay, and a trickle of oil where stains insist on being admired. The cloth is squeezed, not wrung to death, and laid on clean sand or smooth stone to drink the sun. Beating can happen, but it is not a punishment. It is a tap to remind fibers to let go. Bleaching is a gift of light, not harsh liquids. The result is linen that smells of water and day, wrapped around a body that has just met oil. It becomes a moving breeze. In a moment, a small myth that loves to appear will drift in, and we will straighten it gently. People sometimes imagine that ancient bodies lived in dust without relief, that washing was rare, that oils only tried to hide what could not be helped. The daily habits we have met suggest something different. Water waits at doorways. Hands and feet are washed between tasks. Oils seal skin after the sun. Wigs and shaven heads allow easy care. Linen thirsts for a bath and is fed often. Public bathhouses belong more to later ages. Here, cleanliness behaves like a household craft. You can feel the calm this brings. It is the calm of a well-kept kitchen or a garden weeded early. In a moment, we will let scent travel beyond the doorway and ride with traders who turned far. Lands into bedtime helpers, resins and woods came to the Nile like quiet ambassadors. Myrrh and frankincense traveled from the incense lands to the south and east, some call them punt in old stories, while cinnamon tales drifted from farther seas, and cedar teased the air with mountain memories. Not every home could afford these, not every night needed them, but even a tiny pinch in a burner could turn a simple room into a small festival. Kifi, the temple's famous blend, lived mostly under sacred roofs, but its legend perfumed the imagination of ordinary people who made their own softer versions. A little juniper, a little wine-soaked resin, a little honeyed smell, then peace. In a moment, we will return to our small jar of balm and see how scent works like a lullaby when it follows a path you know. Routine is the trick. The same dab to the same places, the same cloth over the same shoulder, the same comb through the same wig, the same dry laughter when a drop spills and a cat decides to smell like a garden all night. The body learns that these steps mean rest now. Even when a day went sideways, the routine pulls it upright. A soft analogy helps. Think of brushing your teeth today. The mint is not magic. The pattern is. Here, the oil and linen are the mint. The effect is the same, quiet at the edge of sleep. In a moment, we will smooth the edges of one more question. How did people handle sweat in a hot place without showers on demand? Sweat is not the enemy. It is a messenger. It says, the sun is strong. Find shade. Drink. Linen answers by wicking. Oil answers by sealing. Shade answers by existing in places where roofs, awnings, palms, and reed screens are set thoughtfully. Washing with water and a little natron resets the skin's story, and changing into a fresh tunic resets the day's fragrance. Sand can serve as a natural scrub when water is shirub. Rinse oil. You might not feel polished as in a modern bath, but you feel ready to be comfortable. And comfort, not sparkle, is the goal of night. In a moment, we will visit hands and feet, because they carry the weight of honesty in any day. Hands hold the memory of work, clay, rope, reed, pen, steering, or at night, they are asked to let go. Oil softens the places that split, and a smooth stone wanders over calluses like a moon over dunes. Feet receive water and a pinch of natron with special care. Many homes keep a little stool for foot washing, not a throne, just a device that makes bending a little easier. Sandals are left by the door, and the leather straps cool beside flax strings. It is common to feel taller after washing feet, not because height has changed, but because the day has returned some of its weight. In a moment, eyes will ask their question, and coal will answer kindly. Coal is wiped away at night with a damp cloth. The skin around the eyes rests. In the morning, coal returns in a clean line that is prettier than it needs to be and more useful than it gets credit for. The mineral mix, ground fine and mixed with oil or fat, helps reflect glare from water and sand, and the smooth barrier makes it harder for flies to overstay their welcome. There is beauty in the line, yes, but also engineering. Many features here live in this double space. A wig is both shade and style. An oil is both perfume and protection. Linen is both modesty and microclimate. In a moment, we will let sleep take the lead and see how all this preparation turns into something you can feel with your cheek. A mat laid under linen feels cool and knows how to give back. A wooden headrest catches the neck just under the skull and lifts it away from heat. Skin rubbed with oil slides easily into a posture it can keep without waking nerves. Hair is tidy under a wrap, so there's no tug when you roll. The room smells faintly of clean fiber and a memory of myrrh, or maybe of crushed leaves from a local bush. The scent does not perform. It hums like a chorus under the melody of your breath. If you wake in the middle hours, this smell reminds you where you are and who cares for you. It brings you back without a word. In a moment, the river will sponsor one more kindness school air at the hour when frogs sound lower, and you will see why households designed for that moment as if it were a guest. The second half of the night often brings the best breeze. Roof sleeping catches it first. Courtyards burrow it second. Reed screens breathe with it. Linen drinks it. Oil holds it against skin. You do not need a fan. You are the fan. Lungs and cloth, moving in time with the air that slides down from the north. It is not spectacular. It is reliable. Reliability is the luxury that this land discovered early and kept. It shows up in canals that refill fields, in winds that return, in stars that rise where they should, and in the way people prepared their bodies to meet those rhythms with grace. In a moment, we will let a tiny, witty rumor knock. Were the rich the only ones who smelled nice? And we will answer with the same plain voice as a jar. Grand houses owned stronger scents and servants to grind them. Their cones were bigger, their oils traveled farther. But ordinary homes owned cleanliness and pattern, which are the friendliest perfumes. A rinsed cloth, oiled skin, fresh linen, coal renewed, wig cared for, sandals left outside the sleep space. These are not luxuries reserved for palaces. They are rhythms that belong to anyone patient enough to keep them. A single drop of myrrh rides farther on a clean wrist than a splash rides on a tired one. You could walk past 10 courtyards and know at once which ones were loved by their owners, not because of wealth, but because of care. In a moment, the conversation will turn toward protection, the way people asked the night to guard what washing and oil had made calm. On a shelf near the doorway sits a little figure with a lion's mane and a grin that promises to pull a face at anything uninvited. Base lives here, not as a grand god in a far temple, but as a house friend. Base keeps an eye on childbirth, on music, on sleep, on the little inventions that make a family feel lucky. Torit, the hippo mother with heavy kindness, stands near a child's bed. A bead with an eye painted on it dangles where a breeze will move it slow. Clean skin, cool cloth, easy breath, and a small guardian in sight. This is not magic as a spectacle. This is magic as routine, Heka as maintenance, protection as housekeeping. In a moment, we will open a dream book and peek at the way hopes were written in simple lines. Because after the body is ready, the mind asks for comfort to dot you can picture. The tiny roll, a list of dream signs, and their quiet translations. If you see water running clear, good comes. If you see yourself under shade, your body rests. If you eat a sweet thing, words will be friendly. Not all houses own such a book, but the flavor belonged to many nights. People told one another. Their dreams laughed, worried a little, then trusted the routine to bring the kind ones back more often than not. Oil and linen helped the body. Words and amulets helped the mind. Together they made a bridge strong enough for sleep. And we returned to our guiding question: what small tools helped a busy day end well? And tonight's answer feels smooth under your fingers. Water, natron, oil, linen, comb, coal, clean air, gentle scent, a friendly guardian at the door. In a moment, we will step fully into that dream corner and rest there, letting Base grin at the dark while we read a few hopeful signs to our own eyes. Settle back into the quiet corner we saved. The lamp's circle is small, the reed screen breathes, and the courtyard remembers the taste of resin. On a shelf near the door, the little lion-faced figure smiles with all its teeth, but somehow looks kind. Base is small, but he takes up a lot of comfort. Base is the sort of friend who scares bad things by looking sillier and braver than they are. Across from him, the hippo mother with her heavy grace stands on stout legs. Torit is not sleek, she is steady. You can feel, even without words, why a family would want these shapes watching the door while eyelids fall. In a moment, we'll sit right beneath them and listen to the quiet practice that turns the night into a safe road. Protection here is mostly housekeeping with a warm heart. A mother ties a red thread around a child's wrist with 3 small knots. A father presses a thumbprint into a clay seal on a storage chest and mutters a line that has traveled far from grandparents' mouths. A tiny eye amulet hangs where the draft moves it, painted blue or green in faience that holds the color of water. Nothing shouts. The house does not try to be a fortress. It tries to be familiar. Fear does not love familiarity. It prefers confusion, so families fight it with the opposite routine: order, friendly faces in clay. In a moment, we will place a dream book on our knees and see what hopes look like when they are written down like recipes. A dream book is a list whispered into ink. Many versions lived in this land across centuries. They read like notes a careful ant might keep. If you dream of drinking cool water, good news. If you dream of shade, the body rests. If you dream of eating a sweet cake, words will be friendly tomorrow. Not every house owned one, but the style was known. Some were copied in neat hands by scribes in the house of life. Those schoolrooms we visited with our scribe earlier, some were remembered in kitchens and sung at breakfast as a gentle forecast. The point was not to control the future. It was to hush worry by giving it a chair and a cup of beer. In a moment, we'll watch a grandmother lift a bead and speak. One of those short, soft lines over a child already half asleep. "Let sleep be smooth," she says, "and let your path be like the river after wind." It is not a spell with thunder. It is a lullaby that knows the shape of this place. She touches the child's hair, still smelling faintly of lotus from a festival afternoon weeks ago, and turns the bead so the painted eye faces outward. Base sticks out his tongue from the figure. You can tell he wouldn't tore it. Stares straight ahead, like a wall that grew a heart. The child turns on the mat and finds the headrest with a little sigh. Many historians think bedtime words like this, mixed from book lines and house sayings, did more to calm nights than any fear of monsters ever did. In a moment, we'll visit the headrest more closely, because it hides a tiny, friendly secret. Some headrests carry small carved figures on the underside, where only sleep can see them. A dwarf with a lion's mane, a knot shaped like a belt that people call the Tayot, the knot of Isis. A wedged eye, that well-known sign that looks like a falcon's eye and stands for health and watchfulness. A person resting the neck there never sees the carving while awake, but knowing it exists does the work. It is a hello to the world of dreams from the world of mats and jars. On certain days, a parent might rub a little oil mixed with a pinch of natron on the headrest's curve to sweeten the night, a small, practical polish that also sounds like a blessing. In a moment, we'll watch how a household keeps the doorway tidy in ways that look like charm and feel like hygiene. Thresholds love attention. People sweep the sill and pat dust flat, so the reed screen hangs without gaps. Sometimes, after a funeral in the neighborhood, or during the flood when insects explore, a line of natron is sprinkled across the threshold. A dry river that invites feet to step and small crawlers to rethink. You can call it precaution, or you can call it a ritual. Either way it helps. A clay bowl near the door holds water for washing hands of visitors, so the house receives touch that is fresh from the jar. Cleanliness and protection often share a broom. In a moment, we'll let a small rumor approach, the one that says ancient people lived in fear of curses and answer it with the voice of a bedtime lamp. The fear was there sometimes, the way it is in any age, but most nights dealt in practical hope. If there were bad dreams, families used tools, not panic. Oil on the temples, a different sleeping spot for a night, a visit to the temple on a festival day to ask for a calm mind, a lullaby that included the names of friendly gods the way you might name friendly relatives today. Magic here, the word they called Heka, worked best as maintenance. It was care given a shape and a sentence. House gods like Base and Torit were not distant judges. They were like cheerful aunts and uncles who stood in the doorway and made rude faces at anything that tried to sneak past. In a moment, a mother will sit on the mat and tell a story that behaves like a dream book without the papyrus. She speaks of a fisherman who fell asleep in his boat and dreamed the river offered him a cool cup. In the dream he drank and woke to find his nets full, not because the dream had power over fish, but because he went into the morning with a heart that was not afraid. She speaks of a girl who dreamed of a shade tree and the next day found a new awning up in the market. So she told the story as proof that dreams have cousins in real life. The children smile because these are clean stories. They land softly. They do not use fear to make themselves big. In a moment, we'll follow one child past sleep into a little flurry of eyes and breath and see how a nightmare is handled like a spilled jar, quickly, kindly, without scolding. A small cry, the kind that is more question than alarm. A parent moves before the lamp is fully awake, sits, and offers water. The child says he dreamed of a strange dog. The parent nods, as if the dream simply knocked at the wrong door and needs directions. Here, she says, touching the little amulet of Base, this one barks louder. A few drops of water touch the child's forehead. A line from the dream book lands in a whisper. You saw a dog. Tomorrow a friend remembers you. The same dog that was frightening becomes a messenger now, and the child lies back with a different picture behind his eyes. You can hear the house itself settle after this. It is good at resuming. In a moment, we'll look at the amulets more closely. and see how small designs carry big feelings. The wedget eye looks like a falcon's eye, with markings that suggest light and tears and healing. People wear it because the eye is what shuts when sleep starts, and also because eyes watch. A scarab little beetle that rolls dung into a ball, as if making a sun promises daily renewal and humble work that becomes cosmic. A tiny knot of Isis hangs like a ribbon, care and binding, the promise that things can be tied back together. A lion on a bead is not there to bite. It is there to yawn and stretch, to remind the sleeper that strength can be lazy and still be strength. None of these are exotic once you live with them. They are simply the house speaking to itself. In a moment, we'll open a case that a scribe keeps, and see a different kind of night helper, small catalogue of dreams with red marks like lanterns. A papyrus in a careful hand lists a column of signs with their outcomes. If a man sees himself washing with pure water, it is good. If a woman sees herself under a shade, it is good. If one eats a cake of figs, words will please him. Now and then a line warns, if he sees himself walking backwards, be careful. The scribe has put little red dots just as he did with totals on grain rolls beside lines the temple teacher praised. The book is not consulted every morning. It is a friendly drawer you open when a dream refuses to find its own meaning. You can imagine a child asking to see the good page after a tangle of sleep, and feeling better because someone wrote, "Calm down" in neat signs. In a moment, we'll let a modern analogy sit in your lap, so the idea becomes yours. Think of the small rituals you keep, a phrase you say before a long drive, a song you hum when lights go out in a storm, a picture on a bedside table that tells your eyes, this room is yours. Ancient households did the same, using the props they had: clay, linen, stone, words. They made peace look ordinary. They did not wait for fear to be huge before they fetched help. They made help part of the furniture. That is why the amulets seem to smile. They are used to winning small fights before they start. In a moment, a traveler's story will wander in and remind us that protection follows people out the door too. A boatman on a trip pins a wedget eye to his sash and tucks a tiny figure of base into his bundle with the headrest and the oil jar. He sleeps under an awning near strangers and dreams of a doorway at home. In the morning, he will rub oil on his wrists and laugh that he smells like his courtyard. Long roads feel shorter when a house can be packed in pieces. The amulet is not an alarm. It is a traveling window that looks back at the shelf where it lived. The boatman touches it when the current is strange. He does not beg it for miracles. He uses it to remember his own routines. In a moment, we'll return to our courtyard and watch how the same tools help elders, who wake more often, find easy paths back to sleep. Older eyes open at night, like doors that swing on well-used hinges. A grandmother keeps a small dish of oil by her mat and a cup of water within reach. She turns the bead with the painted eye so it faces the door again, not because it forgot, but because she enjoys participating. She says a short line she learned as a girl: shade over me, light before me, and lets the words do the work of her breath. She once told the children that if a bad dream sits on your chest, it is really your own chest asking for air and a drink. You sit up, sip, stroke your ribs as if smoothing cloth, and lie down again. The charm is this knowledge. The amulet is the handle you grab in the dark, so the knowledge arrives on time. In a moment, one more misunderstanding will call from far away, and we will answer without waking anyone. People sometimes claim the old world was ruled by superstition, as if amulets made choices and people only obeyed. Nights like this show a gentler truth. Amulets were tools that gave the mind a place to put its wish for calm. Dream books were shelves for hopes and worries, so they would not roll around on the floor. Stories turned fears into characters that could be teased rather than feared, and every practice sat on top of simple care. Clean skin, cool cloth, easy air, a lamp that knew how to be small, a door that knew which way to close. In a moment, we'll let the house exhale and watch dreams arrive like boats at a quiet dock. The lamp's wick sinks to a small coal, then relaxes. The reed screen whispers a slow yes to the north wind. The child's bead clicks faintly as it turns on its string. One more task completed. Base keeps grinning, turret keeps standing. The smell of oil remembers the flower bed it came from, and then chooses to say nothing more. If you were to see dreams here, you would see water that stays clear, shade that moves to follow the sleeper, sweet dates that do not stick to teeth, a road that does not wander, and we return to our guiding thread. How small household protections and simple dream lore made the night feel like a friend, and, we can say with quiet confidence, by making comfort visible. In a moment, we will drift forward a season and listen to how the sky itself became a calendar of sleep, when Sirius rose, when frogs sang differently, and how the year's 3 acts flood, sowing harvest rocked families to rest with the river's own rhythm. Night teaches the year as clearly as any teacher with a reed in hand. If you sit on a roof long enough, you learn 3 kinds of air, 3 kinds of sound, and 3 kinds of sleep. The river swells and falls, fields change from mirror to green to gold, and the sky keeps pace with signs that arrive right on time. People give names to these moods: flood, sowing, harvest, and build their routines around them, the way a weaver builds patterns into cloth. Sleep follows the same thread. In a moment, we'll listen to the flood's voice, because that is where the year begins for most hearts. When the river rises, banks blur, and islands wake up from being fields. Water reaches doorsteps in some places and stops politely at dikes in others, and boats tied to mooring poles where carts stood weeks before. Nights sound full during flood season. Frogs hold long conversations, and the thin music of insects becomes a blanket that covers sound from far away. Families bring mats to rooftops or upper rooms, because the air is soft and slightly cooler, and the breeze carries the smell of silt that promises bread in months to come. Many historians think the bright star that later ages calls Sirius returning to the dawn was a sign people watched for, not because of romance, but because it matched the river's own plan so well. In a moment, we'll tilt our faces toward that star and feel why it felt like a year turning on a quiet hinge. The star rises just before the sun for a short while each year, a quick, bright whisper at the edge of morning. Priests note it with instruments, sailors note it with habit, mothers note it while pouring water for hand-washing before the day. People greet it as if a friend returned from a long trip, because it brings news. The flood has begun. The new year opens. The calendar is not lost. Even if clouds veil it, the river itself confirms the message, pushing small waves against stairways and licking the marks on quay walls. Nights in this season often come with nets hung from reed frames, because mosquitoes also enjoy the waters. Gift families adapt, with linen veils and a pinch of fragrant resin. In a moment, the flood's first eagerness will settle, and we will notice the second thing it gives: unhurried time. High water means fields rest. Farmers mend baskets and tools, and house courtyards become workshops where sleeping mats share space with shuttles and mallets. Work shifts to boats, and to places that the water does not bother: temple stores, granaries, the levees that knit villages into a dry quilt. Sleep can be generous now because evenings do not demand late harvest or frantic sowing. People tell stories longer, sing a verse more, and let the lamp burn a moment past its usual end, then pinch it without guilt. The frog's pulse keeps time for the night watcher on the roof, who listens in case the wind changes. In a moment, the water will begin to step back, and a new smell will rise from the earth that feels like a waking body stretching. As the flood falls, the fields reappear wearing a thin skin of silk-black silt. The moon looks sharper somehow in these weeks, because air dries and distances gain edges. Families move sleeping places back to courtyards if roofs feel too cool, and reed screens begin to spend more time leaning than hanging. Wood and rope creak differently, less saturated. More crisp-band sandals on dust make that friendly hush you hear on well-swept floors. A plow waits at the edge of a plot. Oxen sleep near with breath like small clouds. People go to bed a little earlier, not because they are tired of talk, but because dawn calls for hands. In a moment, the first furrows will open, and the sky will notice by sending a wind that feels like advice. Sowing season is disciplined and hopeful. Days begin before full light, with breakfast the color of clay and dates, and tools that were mended during flood now earn their praise. At night, you feel the day's neatness in your bones. Sleep arrives like a list with boxes checked, ditch cleared, seed carried, furrow opened, water guided. The sounds are different too. Instead of frogs, you hear small bells from animals finding their places. and the slow rub of rope through guides where irrigation channels need a hand. The air smells of damp earth instead of open water, and houses cool more quickly after dusk. In a moment, we'll kneel beside a canal and see how even water changes its bedtime manners. Canals return to being narrow, reliable lines that thread fields together. Their banks are high, their paths deliberate, and their mouths guarded by simple gates-formed trunks and bundles that can be moved by two people who agree on the timing. Night, by these canals, tastes quiet. A kingfisher sometimes clicks even after dusk. A night bird skims for insects. Dogs doze on ridges where they can see both path and water. Sleep near canals is deep in a different way from roof sleep during flood. Roofs gave sound like a wide drum. Canals give a steady hush that covers smaller noises. In a moment, the sky will join the routine with a fresh lesson in slow clocks. Sowing season teaches stars by spacing. Constellations ride a little higher each week, and the band of the Milky Way stands like a path, scored with a comb across black lacquer. Some families have a favorite star they greet before turning in. Children point from mats and ask if their bright friend has moved, and parents say, "A finger's width tonight," which is both a joke and a lesson. Temple watchers mark more exactly, but households do not need numbers to feel pace. The moon's curve tells what it plans for shadows, and those who walk at night plan their steps around it. In a moment, weeks will pile into months. The green will make fields shine in moonlight, and then the edges of gold will appear like light trapped in grass. Harvest approaches with a sound before a color. Flails whisper against heads of grain. Threshing floors thrum, and the sigh of gathered stalks becomes the town's summer music. Days are longer now, and hotter. Sleep adapts. Families retreat indoors at noon. Let the house turn into a cool cave, and take a short rest that lends the late afternoon energy. Nights hold that special tiredness that is not heavy, just satisfied. Skin smells of straw and sweet dust. Mats catch flecks of chaff that the broom will greet in the morning. Lamps burn a touch earlier as days stretch. That is not a contradiction, just a calendar written with flames. In a moment, we will stand at a threshing floor under stars and watch how whole villages keep time together without saying a word. Threshing floors are flat, clean circles near the edge of fields. In the evening, after the day's thumping and tossing, they become small stages for air. The ground holds warmth at your bare feet, thank you, and a breeze finds its way across, rising from the river and testing the straw. Children run in patterns they drew with sticks that morning and fall asleep without being told. Adults sit with cups that remember barley and talk in low voices so the stars can finish their lines. Sleep here is social and simple. People drift home in ones and twos, leaving the floor to the dog who pretends it is a throne. In a moment, we will fold this season's generous tiredness into something quieter, a kind of grateful counting that matches the sky's own habit. Harvest nights are when people talk about numbers without writing them. How many sacks? Someone asks. Enough, someone answers, and then elaborates with a story about a particular day's wind that flipped chaff just right. They count blessings in different units. A jar of beer safely sealed, a boy's first straight furrow, a calf born into shade, a neighbor's new awning. Sleep, after such counting, is the best kind, because the mind keeps the totals and lets the body rest. The town's granary we visited in another hour leans into this season too. Its raised floor, an extra bed for the whole district. In a moment, a small myth will try to creep in, the one that says heat swallowed all other sensations. And we will answer with a cooler truth. Nights can be cool, even in summer. The river, generous by day, becomes a long breath by dark, sending air toward fields and courtyards. People dress, sleep the way they dress themselves. Layered, a mat and linen in flood season. A mat, linen, and a light wrap at harvest when breezes turn playful. A mat indoors when winter fingers find stone floors and ask for kindness. Winter here is not snow and ice for most of the Nile Valley. It is a gentler cool that makes morning water lively and evening lamps especially friendly. Many historians think this range of temperatures, rather than a single desert heat, shaped the habits we've been visiting: roof sleeping, courtyards, reed screens, headrests that invite air under necks. In a moment, the year will tip into its smallest act, the precious pause between harvest's finish and flood's first rumor. This pause is a gift people notice, even if they do not speak about it. Tools are cleaned and hung, walls whitened, awnings mended, sandals given new straps. Nights are quiet like a held note. Families visit more, carry dates to friends, and bring a small lump of incense as a joking tax for stories. Children sleep hard because they have carried bundles and learned to stack without crushing. Elders sleep light because they like to wake and look at stars that have stepped to new places. The bright friend that announced the year months ago sits now in a different corner of thought, and people know it will return to the dawn when the river decides. In a moment, we'll step back through the whole circle and feel how this rhythm makes even worry learn manners. Flood, sowing, harvest, 3 verses of the same song. Each verse writes different instructions on the body: when to eat lighter and sleep longer, when to rise earlier and nap at noon, when to make time for mending. So the next verse begins without panic. Houses help with these shifts without being asked. Read, screens move, mats migrate, linen piles shrink and grow, oil jars travel from shelf to shelf. The temple we visited changes to certain hymns walk in different seasons. Offerings taste of first fruits or of preserved gifts, and the water clock's keeper adjusts his flow as temperatures change. In a world with few clocks, there was still no shortage of time, because time was measured by things that repeated themselves kindly. In a moment, we'll let a soft modern echo settle on your shoulder. You might keep seasons in the way your window light changes, or the way your street sounds at night in different months. Perhaps your sleep shifts when rain comes often, or when crickets trade places with early birds. If you have ever rested better simply because the year turned, you have shared a pillow with these people. The body trusts patterns. The Nile offered the biggest pattern most locals knew, and they learned to lean on it without clutching. This gave courage the shape of patience, not of force. Courage said, "We will be at the roof when flood sings, at the canal when sowing calls, at the threshing floor when harvest claps." In a moment, the sky will shift from lesson to lullaby, and we will notice how all this seasonal training shaped the way people pictured peace after this life. Because if every year is a circle of working and resting under a river and a sky that keep their promises, it is natural to imagine the best version of that circle as a place you go when work is done. The field of reeds, the name many give to a gentle afterlife, looks like harvest without hurry, sowing without worry, flood without fear. It is not an unknown galaxy. It is the good parts of here, polished and kept. Families who slept under nets during flood season, who counted stars at sowing, who fell into deep tiredness after threshing, took those feelings and made them into hope. And we return to our guiding thread, how seasons and starlight rocked people to rest, and we can feel the cradle still swaying. In a moment, we will walk into that imagined field with careful feet, not to measure it, but to see why picturing perfect work and perfect rest helped real people close their eyes each night and wake, ready to begin again. The field of reeds begins like a memory you already own. It looks like the river valley on its best day, only the breeze is always right, and no tool blisters a hand. Canals shine like thin mirrors between green plots. Grainheads sway as if they know every song, and agree to dance without tiring. Boats slide along water that never argues with wind. Families walk on paths where reeds whisper welcome, and dogs trot ahead with that polite pride dogs have when they are certain of the way home. It is not a palace in the sky. It is a perfect neighborhood of fields and courtyards, kept the way you keep a favorite room. In a moment, we'll step closer and see why this gentle picture helped people close their eyes each night without fear. Many believed that after death, the heart was weighed against a feather, which was a soft way of saying, did your life keep balance with truth? The feather belonged to Matt, the idea of right order that kept boats upright, scales level, and voices honest. This scene was not meant to scare the living away from sleep. It was meant to teach them how to live so that sleep felt safe. A heart light with fairness, kindness, and the ordinary courage of work could pass into a land that looked like the best morning after harvest. Even the judgment had household tools in it: a scale, a feather, a truthful tongue, things a market, scribe or a weaver would recognize. In a moment, we'll follow the path beyond that door and listen to what a perfect day sounds like there. You wake too quiet. Laughter, and the smell of bread that asks for no hurry. Your parents are near, not as ghosts, but as the young versions you have always wanted to meet, and they are glad to see you as you remember yourself on your best afternoon. Friends arrive without having to travel. Neighbors who moved away in life appear at the edge of the field, carrying baskets that never feel heavy. A small breeze keeps the sun friendly, and the soil gives itself up to the lightest touch. You walk between rows that are already weeded by hands, so eager to help they finish before anyone knows to ask. If a canal needs guiding, it understands suggestion like a well-trained animal. In a moment, we will step into a boat the way we have many nights in our story, and it will take us along a bank that knows each name. Boats here are made for pleasure as much as for purpose. Their sails fill with the courteous wind. The oars touch water just to say hello. A favorite reach of the river repeats itself as often as you wish. The bend you loved always waiting around the next bend. The cove where birds gather always ready to surprise you again. Fishing is easy because the river gives but no fish is wasted. It is as if every gift already knows where it belongs. If you loved the chase of birds through marshes in life, here the reeds open for you without tearing, and your throw always lands with grace. The boat moors at a dock that smells like palm wood and warm rope. In a moment, we'll walk past a threshing floor and find a festival that happens without making anyone tired. Feasts in the field of reeds do not shout. They feel like a long table under shade where the breeze knows the order of courses. Bread tastes like the first loaf you ever pulled apart with proud hands. Beer holds that friendly weight that makes shoulders rest. Dates arrive at their own pace, sweet as memory, and onions wear their kindness instead of their sting. Musicians play quietly, and dancers move like the line of a canal scene from a high roof, curving, smooth, reassuring. You can sit with your back to a pillar and hear stories you know by heart, told by voices you missed. You can tell your own and watch everyone nod. In a moment, a small misunderstanding will peek around the corner, the one that says such a place must be complicated, and we will set it down gently. This afterlife is simple on purpose. It is farm work without aching, craft without splinters, travel without dust in the eyes. Many tomb walls show scenes of sowing, reaping, watching birds rise like confetti, or sitting under a lattice with a cup and a gentle smile. These pictures were not grand puzzles. They were reminders. May your next world feel like your favorite parts of this one. A few small helpers appear too, the little figures later ages call shabdas, placed in tombs to promise help with chores if needed. It is likely a kind of joke and kindness together. In the perfect fields, work is joy, but if ever you sigh, a friend shaped from clay stands up and says, "Rest, I will take this turn." In a moment, we'll walk into a house that looks like yours, only the cracks are stories, not worries. The courtyard waits with mats in their best mood. A jar of water is always cool. Reed screens have learned the perfect angle and never complain. In a niche, the house gods who guarded your sleep with the grin tore it with her serious kindness, and not to warn off danger now, but because old friends should not be asked to leave. A shelf holds a headrest that is exactly shaped to your neck, and the linen at the foot of the mat feels new every time you touch it. If you want, you can climb to the roof and lie down where stars gather in their old patterns. The Milky Way. Again, a path you can trace with a finger. The same bright friend who announced the river's rise in life takes a seat near the horizon, as if to say, "You see, I keep my appointments here too." In a moment, we will listen for the temple, because its quiet also has a place in this calm map. Temples in this picture are never far. Their roofs are made for walking without effort. Lamps do not need tending, yet they burn with that same steady heart. If you loved singing, your voice always finds the note. If you loved silence, the silence fits your ears like a cap. The God is not hidden. The God is a good neighbor, whose door never needs a seal, because every hour is the right hour. The water clock has no work, yet it sings anyway soft, even drops that are a pleasure instead of a schedule. A priest smiles in the way people smile, when no task is urgent and all habits have turned into gifts. In a moment, a child will run past, because children are the best test of any good place. A child here does not need to be hushed to be kind. She runs with the assurance of someone who's learned that every corner opens into welcome. She plays at grinding grain and never gets tired of the circle. She places a bead on a string and never loses it to a crack in the floor. She learns to splash water where a planted bed asks for a drink, and the water arrives as if happy to have been invited. She falls asleep where she sits, head against a warm pillar, and someone carries her to a mat that has already learned her shape. The amulet on the shelf is no longer a guard. It is a souvenir. It says, "We kept you safe there. We keep you safe here." In a moment, we'll meet an elder and hear why time has become an old friend. Rather than a teacher with rules, an elder sits and does that special work of remembering without regret. He names harvests by the tameness of their winds and floods, by the kindness of their edges. He recalls who sang what song at a wedding 50 summers back, and who shook a lamp to make a small, brave joke at a funeral. He tells all this to a listener who does not need to hurry away and who never has to pretend they are not interested. The elder's heart feels light because the feather approved it, and his voice feels light because no basket waits for him in the morning unless he chooses it. Many historians think this gentle view of afterlife grew from a land that had learned, through river and wind, that repetition can be blessing, not trap. In a moment, we'll step aside and look at how the idea flowed backward into nightly sleep. If the best future looked like a perfect version of today, then each night could feel like practice for a safe arrival there. Bedtime routines, washing, oil, linen, headrest, a word at the doorway were not empty motions. They were small rehearsals of the great passage. The headrest carved for tombs looks very much like the one by the mat. The amulets painted on walls look like the ones dangling by doors. The stars painted on a ceiling are the same ones a child would trace with a finger before sleep. Even the books placed in tombs, the papyrus rolls with helpful lines for a soul's journey, read like careful lists a household scribe might admire. If you meet water, speak this. If a gate asks your name, smile and say that. If your heart trembles, let it rest, for it is known. In a moment, we'll listen to a line from such a text, not as spell, but as comfort. May your steps be firm, and your mouth know good words. Simple. It is the same hope a parent offers when a child carries a jug across a courtyard for the first time. It is the same advice a pilot gives an apprentice when steering into a new channel. Keep your hand light. Keep your eyes kind. The great ideas in this world war, everyday clothes. Mat, the balance feather, was a goddess and also a way to hold a scale straight. Heka, the magic, was a power of gods and also the right sentence said at the right time to steady a house. Ra's daily rebirth in his solar boat was a god's work, and also the sun, a scribe, watched from his roof, trusting that morning would return. In a moment, the boat of the sun will appear at the horizon, and our own story will practice that rising. Gently. First light in Egypt is a quiet drummer. The east turns pale like linen rinsed and wrung, and the black along the rooflines goes soft. A bird, then another, decides the hour has arrived. If you are awake, you smell the oven before you see it, because someone always wants bread first. A fisherman pulls his net and feels that forgiving weight we felt at dusk. A scribe rinses his reed pens and sets a new sheet of papyrus across his board like a fresh bed. In the temple, a door opens, not with drama, but with practiced care. The seal that protected the night is broken like a small fast, and lamps inside nod as if they were waiting for this breath. In a moment, you will remember how many rooms we visited together, and all of them will seem to take the same deep inhale. Morning gathers the boat, the field, the courtyard, the scribe's small roof, the temple's lake, the mooring line that hummed enough, and the reed screen that breathed like a living thing. The field of reeds is not a faraway dream now. It is a lens that made every good morning clearer. When someone said good night in this land, they practiced a little hope, that the sun would return, that the river would behave, that work would find the right weight, that love would be ordinary and therefore strong. This hope did not need a trumpet. It needed habits, and we have felt them: washing, oiling, laying down linen, placing a headrest, pinching a lamp, naming a star, nodding to base in the doorway. In a moment, before we leave, we will touch the lightest part of the old judgment again and let it soften into advice you can carry. A light heart is not a trick. It is a daily craft. It grows when you make scales honest, when you tell the truth gently, when you spread bread and laughter at the same table. when you meet night with routines that calm others as much as yourself. The feather does not float because feathers are magic. It floats because air loves them, and air is everywhere. Balance is available. If you fail one night, you try again the next. The flood returns even when a season is lean. The wind returns even when a week feels still. The star returns even when clouds guess they can hide it. In a moment, we'll set the headrest under the neck one more time and notice how even that small lift is about giving the body a reason to trust. Trust. Here is the final lullaby. Trust that a mat can be cool. Trust that linen can drink heat. Trust that linen can drink heat. Trust that oil can keep skin friendly. Trust that a door peg can remember which way it turns. Trust that a neighbor's voice will be kind if you knock. Trust that a god enjoys a tidy room more than a dramatic speech. Trust that if you close your eyes and breathe the way you did last night, and the night before, and the night 50 harvests ago, in stories told by elders, the world will meet you halfway. And we return to the question that opened this last pathway. A perfect farm day became the way people pictured peace, and we can answer it softly now, because the best parts of the real day were already good enough to copy forever. In a moment, the sun will finish lifting, and the first bird will try a bolder note, and all our rooms, the market, the boat, the temple, the scribe's roof, the courtyard will wake in the same key. So let the field of reeds live as a picture you can keep behind your own eyelids. A place where work is gentle, food is shared, doors remember, and night always leads to morning. If your eyes are heavy, that picture will cradle them. If they are open, the picture will simply make the edges of your room friendlier. Either way, the old river keeps its promise. The day arrives, the bread rises, the lamp answers the match, with a small, steady heart. And you, like the scribe, the fisherman, the temple watcher, and the potter's child, can take one more calm step into morning, carrying the piece of a story that traveled from a quiet river to the quiet where you are now. We opened with simple questions that waited like small lamps along the river. What did the night really sound like in ancient Egypt? Which little tools helped a busy day end well? And what did dreams mean when the stars moved like careful punctuation across the sky? Now, at the edge of our journey, the answers feel close. By gate the night along the Nile sounded like frogs practicing notes, oars tapping wood, a millstone turning, and soft voices finishing a sentence before sleep. It was not empty or fierce by default. It was company, a shared hush that let roofs, courtyards, and boats breathe together. The tools were small on purpose. Water at the door, a pinch of natron to reset the skin, oil to turn sun-tired limbs into silk, linen that drank heat and gave it back as cool, a simple headrest that lifted the neck and invited air to pass, a lamp that did not chase the dark, but made a steady circle where hands could find one another. These repeated acts were the lullaby underneath every room we visited: the fisherman's bank, the potter's yard, the scribe's roof, the temple's quiet halls, the moored boat, with ropes that hummed enough. Dreams found a friendly place in that pattern. A bead with an eye, a grinning base, a hippo mother's steady gaze, a line from a dream book that turned worries into guests with names. People did not try to wrestle the night. They gave it tools and manners. If a child woke, water touched the brow, a charm faced the door, and the story of the dream was turned until it showed its kind side. If an elder woke, breath and a sip rethreaded the body to the room. Even the imagined afterlife, the field of reeds, was a gentle echo of the best day here. Work without ache, travel without dust, rest without fear. We walked the seasons because the year itself was a cradle. Flood taught roof sleep and the music of frogs. Sowing brought early nights and star clocks that anyone could read by eye. Harvest gave that sweet, satisfied tiredness that turns a mat into an embrace. The temple kept time with drops and stars, while homes kept time with washing and lamps. Everywhere, balance mattered more than spectacle. A scale held straight, a door sealed and opened in the right order, a list neat enough to let a town wake free of worry. If you would like to carry something from this river into your room, let it be the simplest thing. Make a small circle of calm and step inside it each night. Wash what the day used, oil what the sun taught, spread the cloth that remembers cool, lift your head just enough to trust the air. Name one star out your window, Even if it is only a streetlight you decide is a star for now. Leave a friendly guardian on a shelf, a book, a picture, a souvenir, and let it watch while your eyes close. That is how the past spoke to its own nights, and it still works. Thank you for drifting through this quiet history with me. If you like this pace, you can subscribe, and we will keep walking softly through other rooms of the past together. For now, let the lamp in your mind become a small coal. Let the reed screen breathe. Let the river's old lesson return. The world is steady enough to hold you while you sleep. Breathe in, breathe out, and rest.